Tonight on CFTK-TV News, terrorists suffered a power outage this morning. A major treaty is set to be signed later today, and the Kitimat RCMP recently released their latest weekly report.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. Early this morning, terrorists encountered some challenges revolving around the hydro in the downtown and surrounding areas. CFTK-TV's Damian Smith has more.
Much of the terrorist community was getting ready for the week when a sudden power outage shut down much of the city Monday morning. Now, just this morning at the intersection of Monroe and Highway 16 after 7 a.m., there was a motor vehicle accident right near the Toyota dealership here in Terrace, BC. Though the power did go out in some of the residential neighborhoods shortly after the accident, downtown has been the area that has been affected the most. A total of 314 customers were affected according to the BC Hydro website. BC Hydro expects the power to be fully available at the end of the day, right around 5 p.m. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damian Smith.
Prior to the initialing of the proposed treaties between the Crown, the Kitsilist First Nation, and Kitsum-Kaleb First Nations, the Lac Willam's band said they object to the treaty proposals. In a release, the Lac Willam's band said they do not take issue with other First Nations seeking self-government and self-determination through treaty. However, they say these two proposed treaties have not met their consultation obligations, and Lac Willam's has yet to receive adequate information on these proposed treaties. Furthermore, Lac Willam's says the proposed boundaries violate a significant past agreement on territorial boundaries that was endorsed and agreed to by Kitsilist and Kitsum-Kaleb. Lac Willam's maintains the Crown should not proceed with initialing these two agreements until their band has been meaningfully and adequately consulted and accommodated. The treaty is scheduled to be signed by the Kitsilist Nation sometime today and Kitsum-Kaleb on Tuesday. The Kitimat RCMP recently released their latest report that disclosed what happened over the span of a recent week's time. One such incident saw a victim report that a man robbed him by slashing at him with a knife, and the robber is still unknown and at large, while being described as a around 6-foot-tall Indigenous man, while being thought to be close to 25 years old or so. The robber was also described as having facial hair, black pants, a black toque, and black shoes. Another part of the report said that a grizzly bear was in a backyard on Capilano Street, and due to the fact that it did not run away and didn't appear to be afraid of humans, the RCMP got permission to dispatch the bear. A former assistant hunting guide near Fort Nelson was fined $22,000 after a court decision last week. The BC Conservation Officers Service said that Richard Todd Bunnage pled guilty to 3 Wildlife Act offenses, including guiding outside the guiding territory and knowingly making a false statement in a report. The bulletin also said during the investigation that took place between 2019 and 2021, officers determined that Bunnage guided several non-resident hunters in areas outside the authorized territory. The Conservation Office last went on to say that Bunnage is now banned from being a guide outfitter or assistant guide for a decade. Coming up next, an investigation into a child abuse case has more updates. Welcome back. Answers have recently been publicized in a horrific case of child neglect where relatives say authorities ignored repeated calls about 3 children living in awful circumstances. Now the union representing social workers has spoke out about what they call an acute staffing crisis in BC. CTV's Michelle Bernoro has more, and a warning, some viewers may find this story disturbing.
At least 7 times, relatives say calls were made to and apparently ignored by social services and police concerning these children.
They were utterly 100% neglected and locked in their rooms. The children, when found, they were covered in feces, urine. They literally were feral.
We can't identify the foster mom, but she says the siblings were only removed from the home after their biological mom called the ministry herself because she could no longer cope. The union representing social workers would not comment on what happened with these siblings, but says the caseloads social workers are facing have become too much.
Social workers feel the staffing shortage right now is a crisis. And it's a crisis that is impacting their work.
The minister responsible says her ministry has been working to add staff.
We have, over the last little while, increased staff throughout our ministry. Again, layering accountability and oversight.
But the union says in 2020, there was 1 frontline staff member to 1,581 people in BC, 4 years later, it's 1 to every 1,883 people.
Seeing a crisis in retention that's leading to, that primarily is resulting from burnout.
He says for some frontline workers, the workload has tripled.
Imagine carrying a triple caseload, and if all of a sudden you have some significant crises, even 2 or 3 crises inside that caseload, you're into constant crisis management.
A crisis is what the relatives of these children feel they're now facing daily as they try and care for the kids who often scream for hours, are nonverbal, and have never been potty trained.
These children could have been saved so long ago. Even if the children weren't removed, the family could have received help.
They say there are no excuses for why pleas to check on the children were repeatedly ignored.
Don't hurt yourself.
Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police are looking to identify a suspect after 2 people were allegedly pepper sprayed outside a downtown restaurant earlier this year. CTV's Ben Nesbitt reports.
What exactly led to what appeared to be an alarming pepper spray attack is unclear. Now, after a lengthy investigation, police are hoping these images may lead to a break in the case. Take a look at the top of your screen. Circled in yellow, you can see 2 men standing in front of a restaurant. A third man dressed in black approaches them and deploys what police are saying was pepper spray. The man then casually walks across the street. It happened near Powell Street and Gore Avenue on February 8th. Police also shared these images of the suspect from inside a few different buildings. He's described as a man in his 30s who's likely white. He was wearing a black sweatsuit with distinctive red writing down the left arm and leg. Police are asking anyone who recognizes the suspect or who may have seen something that day to contact them. Ben Nesbitt, CTV News, Vancouver.
The Sayout First Nation on the Saanich Peninsula had a lot to celebrate recently. The nation has bought some of its land back, growing its land base by 15%. Anna McMillan shows us how members demonstrated their respect for the land and the culture that thrives there.
John Sampson is demonstrating what his father and grandfather taught him.
As Native people, we passed on a lot of our traditions.
The hand drum maker from Sayout First Nation is sharing his knowledge for Indigenous Peoples Day.
It's good to hand it over to our younger generation. That's what my dad told me, and probably what my grandfather told my dad.
Sayout's chief says there's a key element to passing down traditions like this.
Without land, we're not a people. We can't practice our culture and ways of being because we need a land base to do that.
So Sayout is celebrating growing its land base by 40 hectares.
Nobody helped us do this. The landowner came to us personally and asked us as a nation if we would want to purchase this land, and we graciously accepted.
Chief Abe Pelkey says they bought this agricultural land between Sayout and Island View Beach for $5.6 million.
I'm overjoyed to let the nation members know that this is now Sayout First Nations land again.
He says this was once part of a village site and had been promised to Sayout in the Douglas treaties of the 1800s.
That didn't happen.
Members will be consulted on the land's future use.
The land misses our tongue, our language, our practices.
Practices that were on display during a first salmon ceremony back at the Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations.
To thank them for giving us life, us sustenance, and for them to come back again next year.
It's a show of respect for the land and everything that lives here.
Our community is growing and families are growing, but the size of our reserve hasn't grown, and we really need to expand and have opportunities like this to create a better future for our youth.
Now, when those youth become elders,
when they leave, they can leave with peace in their mind and peace in their heart and know that their children will have a home.
Anna McMillan, CTV News, Sayout First Nation.
A local company has gone to great lengths to bring a powerful and well-known machine to BC. Our first Black Hawk is now in the final stages of approval to fly into Canada. Penny Deflos now with an exclusive look at the chopper that fights wildfires.
That's no ordinary helicopter.
and it's the first time it's been seen in British Columbia.
It was a treat to learn how to fly.
Contour Helicopters in Fort Langley spent months refurbishing and upgrading the Sikorsky Black Hawk for civilian flight.
CAL FIRE, LA County have been using these aircraft for over 20 years.
The heavy-duty chopper is now equipped in the California style with a massive belly tank with capacity for 4,500 liters of water.
This aircraft is on average about 50 knots faster than existing aircraft. So we can get to the fire faster and we can put 3 to 4 times more water per drop.
It's nighttime capable, takes 2 pilots to operate.
T-handles full forward.
And only flight crew are allowed on board for what they expect will be primarily wildfire fighting missions.
Its reaction time and the water on site to the fire that quickly, and the amount of water it's hauling and how quickly it delivers it is going to be a game changer.
Since this is an ex-military aircraft, Contour Helicopters needed an export permit from the U.S. State Department and special approvals from the FAA and Transport Canada.
In test flights over the Fraser River, the Black Hawk was able to load thousands of liters in under a minute, with all that volume ready to be targeted on explosive or difficult to access wildfires.
The sooner we get there, the better chance we have of being have an effective fire suppression effort.
The BC Wildfire Service has standing agreements with 120 aviation companies to hit burgeoning wildfires aggressively from the air, especially when they're near communities like we saw last year in North Vancouver.
We're starting to use aircraft more and more, and that is because the size, scope, complexity, and scale of all these fires.
Contour is now waiting for final approvals for commercial flights, and when they get it, they say they'll be ready
within the hour
to tackle wildfires threatening infrastructure and homes throughout the province. Penny Dafflaw, CTV News, Fort Langley.
Turning to tonight's weather, the north coast should see a chance of showers and a low at 10 degrees. The Terrace-Kitibat area will deal with some mainly cloudy conditions and a low at 11 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is likely to deal with a chance of showers and a low at 4 degrees. On the north coast, the week for them should consist of mostly clouds and possibly some rain, while the high shifts from 15 to 60 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitibat area, their upcoming week is set to deal with also lots of clouds and rain, with their high bouncing between 19 and 21 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, their next week or so should get a little sun possibly, but potentially will deal with clouds and rain too, plus a high moving from 18 to 23 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, bridge maintenance, road maintenance work, construction work, and mowing. On Highway 35, they are dealing with some pothole repairs. Highway 37 has some paving operations, bridge maintenance, roadside brushing, and more maintenance. Highway 37A has some road sweeping, and the Nishka Highway is dealing with some bridge maintenance. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the View of the Province's highway cams. Still to come, a big tourist attraction is looking to reopen. Welcome back. Years after it was shut down because of extensive flood damage, a major tourist attraction near Hope is preparing to reopen. CTV's Michelle Bernoro now on the rush to restore a landmark that's visited by thousands of people.
In beautiful Coquihalla Canyon Park, signs of progress. Construction crews working to get the first 2 of the 5 Othello tunnels back open to the public.
They're doing scaling and rock bolting, shotcrete, installation of mesh. The mesh provides ongoing protection from future rockfall.
The Minister of Environment visiting the site for the first time.
Decided to do this project in 2 phases so that we could open it this year rather than wait for the completion of all of the phases.
But it's been a long road. Back in November of 2021, the park was heavily damaged when atmospheric rivers pounded the region. Bridge foundations were impacted along with the stability of the canyon slopes above and inside the historic tunnels, increasing the risk of falling rocks. And all that water did significant damage to the park and the tunnels that drew about 50,000 people a year to the area. And locals have been pushing to have the park reopened.
On a small scale like Hope, it's like the Grand Canyon to us.
People have been very disappointed in the region that we've had to close the park. It's an important part of the tourism economy. It's an important feature that people come from other countries and from all over British Columbia to see.
The tunnels, built in 1914 as part of a railroad, were considered an engineering feat of their time. Repairing the tunnels, which comes with a total $4.5 million price tag, has been challenging.
It's a long, narrow site, right, as it follows the old railway grade, so developing a work plan that works and keeps everyone working safely is a challenge when you have such confined constraints to a project.
Still, locals have asked why reopening has taken so long.
It's a complicated project, and not only did we want to repair it and make it safe, we wanted to make it safe in the future.
The exact date for reopening hasn't been determined, but it should be sometime around mid-July. Michelle Brunoro, CTV News, at the Othello Tunnels.
Turning now to a shocking attack on an MP on the streets of Ottawa last week. An anti-government protester spat in the face of Liberal MP Marco Mendicino, and as CTV's Caitlin Wilson reports, it was all caught on camera.
It starts with shouting from a group of anti-Trudeau protesters as Marco Mendicino tries to enter this building on Sparks Street. And when the Toronto MP goes in for a handshake, this man spits in his face. Mendicino declined to comment, saying in a statement, the matter is under ongoing investigation. The entire thing caught on video, where a short time later, a parliamentary police officer approaches the man in question before walking him back to apologize.
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
Shaking his hand before leaving. The Parliamentary Protective Service confirming the incident happened this week. It comes at a time of increased concern over the safety of politicians, with many carrying panic buttons for additional protection.
I have it now always on me. It is always fully charged.
After receiving a slew of online threats and harassment, Senator Bernadette Clément says she now finds herself looking over her shoulder.
We should be able to face criticism and disagree with each other, but not have to be so thick-skinned that we have to take, abuse and disrespect.
And she isn't the only one. MPs and senators in all parties say they're concerned about an increase in harassment. In a video posted to X this afternoon, a man identified as Carl Grant received a trespass notice at Parliament Hill. When asked about it, he says it's for the incident the other day. Police have not confirmed if these two incidents are linked or the identity of the man in question. Caitlin Wilson, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada's soccer says it is deeply disturbed by the racist abuse of one of its players. This came in the wake of a match against Argentina in the Copa America tournament held this year in the United States. CTV's Genevieve Boscheman is following this story.
Canada's team faced off against powerhouse Argentina and revered star Lionel Messi. Late in the match, though, Canadian defender Moise Bombito made a sliding tackle, touching the ball, then making contact with Messi's ankle. The captain was clearly in pain, but soon returned to play, setting up Argentina's second goal in a 2-0 victory.
C'est une expérience en or, bien évidemment.
Just after the game, Bombito said going up against dominant Argentina was a golden opportunity. But the comments section of his social media feed was filled with slurs. Canada Soccer posted that it was aware of and deeply disturbed by racist comments made online. It also said it was communicating with tournament organizers and with the governing body, CONCACAF. In a statement to CTV News, it said, "We stand with Canada Soccer in condemning the disgraceful social media post aimed at Moise Bombito, and that it was seeking ways to investigate the accounts which posted racist material." Stories of discrimination and its impact have shaken the soccer world over the past few months. In March, Brazilian superstar Vinicius Jr. broke down as he described the emotional toll of fans' racist abuse. Today, Bombito posted this image online, writing, "My beautiful Canada," and adding, "No room for that BS." Soccer is the most watched sport in the world, boasting of more than 4 billion fans worldwide. Today, the governing body said it would continue to use its reach to promote unity and respect. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
And now we turn our attention to the stock market's pre-closure. The Canadian dollar is up 0.2 cents. The price of gold is up $13.50. Oil is up 93 cents. Natural gas is down 3 cents. Aluminum is down $8. In Toronto, the TSX is up 277.25 points. The Venture Index is down 4.82. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 274.90, and Nasdaq is down 106.95. Port Moody police are in the midst of looking for 2 teenagers after pedestrians and vehicles were shot with a BB gun pellets back on Friday night. A statement from the police said they got a report of 2 males with an airsoft-style rifle randomly shooting at passing vehicles. Police said they found a pedestrian who had been hit by a BB pellet and had minor injuries, and a second incident was also posted about on social media. Frontline officers were unable to locate the suspects, who were both described as a Caucasian men between 15 and 16 years old with a slim build and dark hair. A release that was recently put out that disclosed that the BC Independent Investigations Office was looking into an incident in Dawson Creek. The incident in question saw the Dawson Creek RCMP respond to a complaint of a few people possessing firearms and bear spray early in the morning. The police ended up arresting 3 individuals, and when one of them tried to run, he is said to have ended up suffering some serious injuries. And now the IIO will be investigating all police actions in this incident in order to determine if what they did was irresponsible and led to the man's injuries. Still ahead is new word on a musician-related sexual assault case. Welcome back. 2 years after he was convicted of sexual assault, former Headley frontman Jacob Hoggard is asking an appeals court to overturn that conviction. Arguments were heard by a panel of 3 judges at the Ontario Court of Appeal. CTV's John Woodward has the details.
Jacob Hoggard couldn't be seen at Osgoode Hall Tuesday morning, but his lawyers appeared in front of a panel of 3 judges arguing his conviction for sexual assault in 2022, where he choked, spat on, and repeatedly raped a woman confined in a Toronto hotel room, wasn't fair and should be overturned. At issue, the evidence from Dr. Laurie Haskell, who testified at trial as an expert about the reaction of sexual assault victims to trauma. Hoggard's lawyers argued the relevance of this evidence, however, assumed the existence of the very traumatic events at issue in the trial, namely the alleged sexual assaults. Unless the jury assumed Hoggard was guilty, Dr. Haskell's evidence was irrelevant. It should never have been admitted. But the Crown said the evidence was important to counter misconceptions about the behavior of sexual assault victims, who do not always leave or report the assault right away to police. The Crown argued Dr. Haskell's evidence was properly admitted. It was relevant not to bolster credibility, but to help the jury assess counterintuitive behavior that may be misunderstood owing to myths and stereotypes. Without it, there was a risk the complainant's evidence would be unfairly discounted. Once the frontman for the band Headley, Hoggard's music career is over. He has said he is making a living as a carpenter in BC. In her victim impact statement, the woman, then a 24-year-old college student, said her life was stolen and shattered beyond recognition. Hoggard was sentenced to 5 years in prison and is awaiting trial on another sexual assault in Northern Ontario, expected in the fall.
John Woodward, CTV News.
That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Kale Maslin, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.